Okay, I'm back for more Misericorde. Let's see where this takes us. Load. Okay. Wait. Second. That's not where I was. Okay. Okay, I think this was where we were at. She just received her meal for the evening. I couldn't keep from wiping them against my thigh, incessantly fidgeting before each page turn as I struggled to find some piece of comfort in one of my books. I think she's crying. Okay, come on. I couldn't find one. Pathetic, wasn't I? 20 some odd years spent reading scripture to the point where I could feasibly recite it without even glancing at a page. Nothing leapt out at me. I flipped through the tomes. Word barely registered as words. Okay, we've already read this. It's a pain in the ass it didn't save my place. Does she get sick this night? Yeah, okay. Hello? Okay, my microphone wasn't working. Lovely. I think this is new. I hobbled back to the bed and rummaged around underneath it to find a brush I'd been given years ago to clean up the occasional ink spill or drops at her plate. I think she just got sick. With the small pail I had for washing, it would make do for scrubbing up the horrid mess I'd made. The cell had its own faucet, mercifully, which dribbled lukewater into the bucket I held with trembling hands. It took far longer than I'd hoped to erase any trace of bile from the flat stone. By the time I finished, my knees and back ached. I should have at least rolled up my habit to provide some cushion for my knees, but I wasn't thinking straight. I was in so much dull pain by the time I stood up that noticing the dirty book sitting on the writing desk was just not the same something I could handle. I'm not proud to admit that I practically tore the damn thing from its plinth. I stomped over to the window, still nude as anything, to hurl into the night sky. I must have looked like some crazy Olympian discus thrower. I regretted it instantly. Not only was it a childish thing to do, but I swear I saw someone looking up at me. Scurried away from the window as fast as I could, flung myself into bed, with my face buried in my pillow. I scrunched my eyes closed. I could feel what felt like a spike being driven through my head, and I was painfully aware of every bone in my body. I ached, I wailed, I despaired, and then finally, sleep. The next morning, I woke up feeling worse than if I hadn't slept at all. The aches may have subsided somewhat, but pain had afflicted my head and merely reduced to a low level buzz that made every thought take twice as long to finish. I meekly slid out of bed and attempted to wash myself with water from the bucket, although I had wasted most of it scrubbing up the bile the previous night. I went to toss the excess out the window so I could ask for it to be refilled later. I could still see my copy of Matthew on the ground beneath the window. She threw the whole thing out? Embarrassing reminder of the last night's behavior. Halfway through tossing the water out, I remembered the horrible apparition I'd seen outside the night before. That woke me up. I turned away from the window as quickly as I had the night before. Even though there was nothing to see out there in the light of day, I simply didn't want to think about it anymore. Nervously, I slipped on my habit, clipped up my whipple, put on my cowl. The spirit had told me that somebody, Catherine, would come to collect me before the morning service. Morning service. I'd forgotten Matins. Are you decent in there? Yes. Good, good. Just a moment. God, which key is it? She's a sassy nun. Oh, look at you! She immediately reached out and yanked on my cowl, adjusting it to suit her liking. You look awful. That's... She gave me southern sass. This won't do. Superior would have my head. I looked up at her, bewildered. Sorry, poor taste. She licked her thumb before pressing it against my forehead and tucking an unruly cowlick under my whipple. I bristled instinctively and pulled away. I was not particularly pleased that my first physical contact in over 20 years was with this woman wetting a wet digit across my temple. Hey! I'm just trying to make you presentable. For heaven's sake, I was busy all night still managing to look my best today. She grabbed my cheeks and peered into my eyes, looking simultaneously deep in thought and maddeningly aloof. After humming and hawing for a moment, she licked another finger and tucked in the rest of the hair sticking out from my whipple quite rudely. Then, after squeezing and stretching my cheeks a little, she gave them a light, frosty slap. Apparently satisfied, she clapped me on the shoulders and patted down my robe to straighten it. That'll have to do. We're gonna have to work on your face, though. It's absolutely colorless. Yeah, no shit. You hit me. You get some blood flowing, my dear. I knew you were going to be a mess, and I wasn't expecting things to be this bad. This was bewildering. You're Catherine, right? The one and only. And your name is... Hedwig. Adorable. Now let's get along. The last thing I need is talking from the superior. She took a moment to admire her handiwork, guiding me up and down. With that, she turned on her heel and began to stride down the hallway. I couldn't follow her. I never left the cell. I stood upon the threshold. I felt as though I were rocking back and forth on the deck of a ship. I closed my eyes for a moment, perhaps hoping that I'd open them and be back where I was just a few weeks ago. Sheltered, sealed, content. Are you coming? I savored a few precious last seconds. Yes, I'm ready now. Off we go, then. Okay. Wait, is that it? That better not be it. I'd never seen the hallway outside my cell before. It was quite long, and Catherine was walking briskly towards the end. We're a way to go, I'm afraid. Right here, if you please. We passed a set of windows with a little statue of the Madonna and Child nestled between them. We took another turn after that, into a hall equally as long as the one my cell was located in. I caught the briefest glimpse of the cloister out of the window. Up ahead are the dorms where the rest of us live. And the Misericorde on the right, just before those. Then the door next to that is the library. And left at the stairs, just before the dorms, there's a good girl. Oh. My God! I puffed up a little. I know how to use stairs, thank you very much. And stop cursing, that's thrice now I've counted. Go on then, after you. I gently put one foot on the step down. Very good. See? One more. I began to descend the stairs very slowly. I instinctively held my hands out for balance, until I felt Catherine firmly grip them and plant them to my sides. We just walk down them normally. No! It's really precious. I'll race you to the bottom. But she had already casually strolled down to the landing. She pointed to the staircase that descended the other way as I wobbled my way down to her. It's more this way, just so you know. You're being perfectly horrible. Aren't I just? Hurry up, we got places to be and people to meet. I came to a foyer with the door leading out to the cloister. The sunlight creeping in was simultaneously daunting and enticing. It's a good thing we don't get much heat here. Your skin looks like it might cook in the sun. She ushered me through the door, not allowing me the same moment I had taken leaving the threshold of my cell. The cloister was a rectangle of grass surrounded by stone arches. Passages ran around the grass, each leading to a part of the convent I hadn't been to yet. The sun glinted off what appeared to be a metal crucifix in the middle of the lawn. Although, do you happen to know if this abbey is built according to St. Gall's plan? I'm just curious about how this place is laid out. What, pray tell, is St. Gall's plan? You know, the standard layout of abbeys. I thought all Benedict monasteries followed it. They might. I wouldn't know. And, well, I thought that door would be taking us to the east, but we're facing south. How on earth would you know that? Have you ever got a compass hidden somewhere in your frock? Have you got a compass hidden somewhere in your frock? Do I? No, it's easy. The sun rises in the east, so that's over there. Oh, come on. You're from the 15th century. You ought to be able to tell directions with the sun, Catherine. I pointed left where I could see the sun's rays creeping over the walls of the cloister. Yeah, pretty much everyone in that day would be able to tell directions by the sun. Like, it's pretty simple. I wasn't aware you'd ever seen the sunrise. So ahead of us from this door would be south. Normally the chapel would be in the northern half of the monastery. Rather, the tower would face north. And the oblates would live in the southeast. Goodness, you must have had some very interesting books to read in that cell of yours. Of course. This abbey could just have been built around a Roman plan. That would follow considering we're Catholics. I ignored this. Fascinating. I'm sure it is to someone. Catherine looked at me, clearly amused by my interest in the layout of the building. I felt as though I made a fool of myself despite correctly observing something. That was a first. I didn't have much of a chance to feel sorry for myself before I was scared witless by a voice right behind me. As far as I know, the building was supposed to follow the plan of St. Gall, but the builders got a little turned around in a storm. I could have jumped all the way out of my habit when there I wheeled around with a yelp. Black nun? In England? In the 15th century? What would I even do for her voice? Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I'm Sister Margaret. I take it you're the anchoress everyone's been whispering about. That's her! Yes, my name's Hedwig. And well, not anymore. I mean, my name is still Hedwig, but I'm not an anchoress anymore. Obviously. Isn't she precious? It's nice to meet you. A word of advice. You can still go back to your cell. We can tell the soup you weren't feeling well. How did she... Oh no, I feel fine. Why would I? Margaret turned to gaze to Catherine, as if to deliver some long-anticipated bad news. She's fixed the portative? Oh, has she now? God, maybe I'll tell her I'm sick today. Stop! Cursing! And, what's a portative? Margaret made a little wiggling gesture with her fingers. A little organ. Which means we'll be singing. More to the point, it means the superior will be singing. I should quite like to hear some liturgical songs, actually. Oh, liturgical, that's a word for it. It certainly make you think about God. It'll make you pray for him to smite the damned organ, that's certain. Is that what we're doing with? Is that what we're going with? I didn't think we decided. We can get our story straight later then. Her words biled in mischief's sense of humor that I would never have expected given her stoic expression. As soon as I thought this, however, the little smile crept across her face. Pleasant meeting you. She slided away just as silently as she arrived. Well, hurry up. If we meet many more sisters on the way, we'll never get there. We continued along the path along the cloister towards the chapel. Two women were huddled close to each other outside the large wooden door, speaking in hushed tones. Catherine leaned down to whisper in my ear. The mousy one is... Oh god. Istrance? Istrance? She's quite smart and a bit bossy. You two should get along swimmingly. The other is Darcy, who... Well, Darcy's very special. Darcy, are you sure you're going to be able to sit through service without doing anything? I keep giggling. It's very distracting. Probably because all the stuff I drank before we came here. That much I gathered. Why would you drink anything you cooked up before service? I thought it might be funny. It might be a little funny. That's right. The pair noticed Catherine and I walking past. Darcy gave me a strange little wave before she wiggled her fingers individually. Oostrance? I know people are gonna hate me. I don't know. I've never seen that name in my life. She gave me a strange look that I couldn't quite place, but I didn't appreciate. Was I just fresh out of myself, unable to comprehend any expression subtler than Catherine's? Or did Oostrance seem to dislike me intensely? I plowed directly into someone's walking past Oostrance and Darcy. In my attempt to keep myself uprighted, I grabbed a handful of my cloak. I tumbled to the floor, nearly dragging the mystery person with me. Thank God I let go on the way down. Girl, are you pregnant? What the fuck? I looked up at the woman I collided with and realized something. This was the intense dislike. Looked like. I'm terribly sorry. Angela. Angela, I see you've met our newest oblate. Catherine shot me a little smirk as I pulled myself off the ground. This is Sister Hedwig. She's still finding her footing, as you can see. I'm really very, very sorry. Angela said nothing to me. She simply looked me up and down and quickly before turning to Catherine. Yeah, she looks pregnant. Or, oh no, is that just the shape of her hip? I think that's just the shape of her hip. She looked pregnant at first. I was like, girl, you pregnant? Your door is still broken. Oh, is it now? You told me you would be getting it fixed 2 weeks ago. Yes, well, I'm a busy woman, Angela. Not too busy to spend most of your evenings in the Misericorde, I've noticed. Catherine took a step closer to Angela. She was barely 1 inch taller, but she was making quite the effort to make it seem like there were 10 between them. Find anything else interesting in my room, Angie? Or were you just testing the door? Just the same. Musk as always. I didn't even have to check inside. It walked out the door on its own when I tested the hinges. So diligent. And here I was thinking Darcy's experiments might be more odorous than anything I might hide. Darcy's experiments aren't alive. She idly watched Oostrance and Darcy walking past her into the chapel, with Margaret and several other people I didn't recognize. Yet. As always, my dear sweet Angela, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sure. She shot me another icy look before turning on her heel to head into the chapel. Time for service. Catherine made a high-pitched little noise that sounded like a mocking sneeze. Angela froze for a moment, but did not turn around before continuing into the hall. Angela's convinced I'm keeping a cat in my room. She's been bothering me about it for months. Are you? Of course not. They're filthy little things. She doesn't like cats. Instantly don't like her anymore. Inside the chapel, everyone was already sitting in pews, all except the superior, who I can make out standing at the altar near the back. She did indeed have a small device in front of her that I'd never seen before. Given the apprehensive looks on the other sisters' faces, I could guess that it was the dreaded portative organ. She noticed me walking with Catherine and gave me an appreciative little curl of the lip just barely legible from far away. When she spoke, her voice echoed around the chamber. It made me jump. Ah, greetings, Sister Hedwig. I would like everyone to give her a warm welcome. A murmur of dullest enthusiasm rumbled through the chapel. I gave a little bow of the head, unsure how to properly respond. Thank you. Come up here, if you'd please. I'd like to introduce you properly. She glanced at the other nuns. To the congregation. I gingerly stepped forward and walked up to the altar. Every footstep echoed around the large room, and I could feel everyone's stares boring into my back. When I reached the superior, she gave me an encouraging smile. Oh, there's a lot of nuns here. Darcy's curious. Oh, we got a nun with an eye patch, and I'm nun with some bushy eyebrows. A nun with her eyes closed, a nun with very big eyes, a nun that doesn't want to be here. Anyway, I turned around and faced my adoring public, who mostly looked like they wouldn't mind if I were to drop dead in front of them. All save for Darcy, anyway, who was looking straight past me with a serene expression. Hello. There was a collective grunt. It felt like the older woman with an eye patch sitting near the back was watching me with a particular interest. She was smiling, but said nothing. There was an awkward pause. Hello! Shh! Oh, sorry. Darcy stuck a hand out and started waving silently before Ustrance grabbed it and tucked it back down at her side. The superior gave me a little nudge. It's lovely to meet everyone. Or rather, the people I've met so far. Catherine, Margaret, Angela, and I walked past Darcy and Ustrance, so we didn't really meet, but you seem very nice. Not that Catherine and Margaret aren't nice. And I also don't mean the rest of you to be lovely to meet. When I can, if you want to. I suppose I'm meeting you all right now. But personally, oh goodness, that sounds strange. At this point I wouldn't have mind dropping dead in front of everyone either. But I couldn't stop there. Well, I suppose the best way to get to know people is through prayer. Not that I've ever prayed with anyone, but that's what I've read. Wherever two or more are gathered, and so on. I've prayed alone many times, though, and really, I suppose, I've never actually been alone. Because I was here, and there were so many of you here, all along. And you've all been praying as well. So, a lot more than two are gathered here, not just in the chapel, but in the abbey, generally. Oh, and you're all probably spoken with me before, or maybe not at all, maybe just some. I may have offered all of you spiritual advice through the hagroscope before. Not that I can tell who is on the other side of that, by the way. Your deepest questions have always been safe with me, so I'll never be able to tell anyone anything embarrassing. Not to imply that anyone has asked me anything embarrassing, and I hope my advice has helped all of you. Or however many of you I ever offered it to. And if you were ever wondering who it was giving it to you, it was me. Here I am. I, for some reason that eludes me to this day, felt it might be best to end with a little flourish. Ta-da! I'm your new chancellor. Silence. Dreadful, dreadful silence. Finally, Darcy raised her hand. Yes? What's a hagioscope? It's a funny little window next to her door. You're supposed to talk through it. Oh, right. I bared my teeth in a wide smile I can manage to the rest of the sisters. I got no response at all, save for another wave from Darcy and a smirk from Catherine. I looked up at the superior for some sort of guidance, any help at all. She just smiled at me and pushed my back gently, urging me to head back to the pews. Hedwig's situation is rather unique, so we all have a responsibility to look out for her and offer her help with the day-to-day round the Covenant. I want everyone to be extra helpful and forgiving towards her, and I want no sort of hazing or praking. By the way, Sister Flora, I will be speaking with you after Prime concludes today. Whatever. Flora was the young woman with the pimply face then. Not wanting to cause a fuss, I walked past the last occupied pew to sit in an empty row in the back, on the opposite side of the aisle to everyone else. Now, the creed, if you'd please, and then we will continue with the usual psalmody before concluding with a hymn. And yes, that means singing. And yes, that means all of you, including Catherine I? Is it an awkward or Catherine the First? Is there awkward parts for everyone lurched into the Anesthesian creed and the superior's urging? I'm not gonna read that, cause no. This is Latin and I don't know it. I guess I could just. And Twilete portis printed vitis elevana mini. I guess I could just. Anyone knows Latin is just face palming right now. Porte aritis es intercup rex gloria. I vomited black bile all over the flat stone floor. Oh my god, girl. Oh my god. Cool. Can we keep going, please? Game? Game. Okay, I have no idea who this is now. Hello? Hello? Maria. Can you hear me? My name's Mora. This is an impolite manner of introduction, but say something if you can hear me. Are you still here? Did I pass out? I opened my eyes and groaned. I was lying on the floor between the pews, surrounded by a semicircle of concerned sisters. The one who had been sitting near the front of the pews was crouched next to me. Her hand was resting on my shoulder to prop me upright slightly. Sorry. Her grim expression melted away as I began to speak. Mora. Don't dare apologize. You had us worried half to death there. She spoke in a lidded accent I couldn't quite place. The superior pushed through the throng of nuns at the moment, prompting the friendly woman to pop back to her standing weight with a little bounce. She's gonna be fine. I think she's just had a tad innervated. All of this might have been a bit much for her humors, I'm afraid. I see. I did warn her that jumping into things straight away might be too much. One second. I had to sneeze. I opened my mouth to object to this out and out lie, but the superior gave me a piercing look. My silence assured, she turned to the friendly-facing woman. Mora, I'd like you to take her to the dormitory to rest for a little bit while in the room that's been prepared for her. If she's feeling up to it, she can rejoin us for luncheon later. Of course. She leaned down to offer a hand to me, which I took. I still don't know what to do. There's too many characters. I staggered back my feet, hiding my gaze from the crowd. What a disaster this has been so far. I took a deep breath and caught just a hint of the foul stench of bile. My baffling speech, falling asleep during the service, and throwing up in front of everyone. Even though these were people I was meant to suspect, I felt as though I'd been humiliated in front of a powerful royalty. Surely there'd be no climbing back from this. So, yes, well, I suppose that means the office of Prime is concluded. There was a permitting murmur from everyone. Amen. The murmur morphed into a half-hearted amen. As everyone began to shuffle outside, Mora kindly offered me her shoulder for balance. You better join us for lunch. You barely weigh a thing. It started to rain over the course of service. As we passed the threshold of the chapel's side doors back to the cloister, I could see Margaret and Catherine huddled together, talking somewhat conspiratorially. Margaret noticed me and raised her eyebrows, prompting Catherine to turn to face me. Do you feel better soon, dear? It's been a pleasure so far. And no hymns. Amen is right, eh? Sister Margaret, since we've let out a little early, surely you wouldn't mind cleaning up our newcomer's mess. I believe there's a mop and bucket in the workshop. Yes, Soup. And Catherine, I'm sure Margaret would appreciate some help. Yes, of course. Moria tugged on my sleeve gently. Come on then, let's get you some rest. We walked back through the cloister and through out the doorways where I'd made a fool of myself in front of Catherine. Everyone always says the monastic life is so simple, but I can imagine it being quite a shock coming from someone from what you're used to. Yes, I suppose so. She squeezed my arm gently. Everyone also says the first impressions are everything, but I have a good feeling that you'll nail your second one, eh? All I could do was groan. I liked your little speech, though. It's not often we get newcomers. Adela was the last one before you, and that was nearly a year ago, if I remember right. Adela? Oh goodness, how silly of me. And we just established you hadn't a chance to meet everyone yet, poor thing. Lots on my mind. I was hoping to introduce myself to everyone properly after Prime, but... We'll get you rested up so you can patch up with everyone later, aye? I didn't have the energy to tell her that I'd been about to say, now I'd rather crawl into a hole and disappear after, but... I don't know whether it was because I'd fully grasped it in the first go-round, or if my current state was so weak generally that Mora wouldn't have noticed. But I made it up the stairs in direction without comment. Here we are. This is where all of us sleep, minus the superior, of course. We made a room up for you already. She swung open one of the wooden doors. A small, meticulously cleaned dorm room awaited. It had a similar straw mattress on the one side, a little window, and an empty bookshelf next to the little reading desk. It was much smaller than the cell I had spent my life in. You could probably fit 2 people in here comfortably for a chat. 3, if one didn't mind sitting on the bed. Well, I suppose you're probably familiar with all that. It's not much, but mostly we just sleep in these. Tugging my arm again, she led me over to the mattress and urged me to sit. You're a little placid still? A nap before lunch should do you some good. What about Therese? Or Sixt? Oh, I slept through Mantins last night. Now you don't dare worry yourself about something as silly as the hours. You're not used to moving and talking and, well, living so much. You need some rest. But prayer, well, for Pete's sake, don't be silly. I'm sure he would understand. I didn't have the energy to argue, but I knew all too well that God does not look kindly to those who would take advantage of his kindness. Prayer is a privilege, after all. Do you have a fresh frock, by the way? I could go and get it for your cell if you'd like. Oh, no, actually, just the one. Someone would come and collect it to be washed every few days. Never mind then. Give it to me and I'll have it washed. Give it? You can turn around if you like. Nothing I haven't seen before, though. She made a show of spinning around before I could argue, so I gingerly undid my habit, stepping out of it and collecting it together in a rubbly little pile. I crawled into bed naked apart from my coif, which I left affixed to keep my head warm. All yours, I suppose. Yeah, I'll have a bath drawn for you as well. You really don't have to. You're not my chambermaid. She stroked my forehead before bending down to scoop up my clothes. I flinched at the sensation. While it was a friendlier gesture than Catherine's thumb assault, it was no less alien. Nonsense. That's what we're meant to do around here. For each other and for any visitors in need of aid. Well, well, thank you. She was right, of course. In my delirium, I'd forgotten the worldly purpose of monasticism. I've been shutting myself for so long, so focused on myself, I completely ignored that it was like what it was the Abbey was here for in the first place. Don't mention it. Do you get any travelers here? People in need? I must admit that I don't actually know quite where we are exactly. She sat down on the end of the bed. Not many. We're quite isolated out here. Out here? The closest village is quite the trek, I'm afraid. We get visitors occasionally, and supplies get sent to us fairly regularly, but we do have to be a little self-sufficient. Where are we exactly? The nearest village is called Limbaro, but we're on top of a hill quite a way away from there. Limbaro. Oh, have you heard of it? It's rather a bit of a hamlet, so I wouldn't be shocked if you hadn't. I have to confess I don't know many English place names at all besides, well, London. Linborough, though, it sounds nice. It certainly rolls off the tongue. It didn't always. I hear folks whittled it down from Lindsborough. Accents are funny like that. Have you ever been to London? Never. The superior came and brought me news about London a few times, that's all. Clerical things, church business I never really understood. I see. How strange it must be to be you right now. No need to tell me twice. I'm sorry. I promise not to gawk any longer. No, it's alright. I wasn't offended. You're right. It's very strange to live one way until one day you're suddenly forced to start living what feels like the absolute opposite way. Yes. I'm just very taken with the idea that the way I live is the opposite way you'd live until today. It's very interesting. It's my turn to apologize then. Not at all. It's perspective I've never considered. I suppose to the rest of the world, us nuns must seem very secluded and rigid. I've certainly felt that way sometimes. But you've lived all by yourself in a little room all these years. With even stricter rules, I'd imagine. Very strict. Which is how I describe monastic life in general, but there was someone living very differently right under my nose. She paused a moment. I noticed a tear rolling down her cheek. Mora? Oh, this was her room. Catherine? She nodded stiffly. It's been so hard. It might have seemed like everything was normal at Prime, but I promise you things have been very difficult with her gone. Sometimes it feels like most of them are trying to act like she never existed. I suppose I can't blame them. It feels so wrong. She could have been here today, a day like any other. She would have really liked you, I think. Not that, oh, you wouldn't have even been here if not for that, would you? I didn't know what to say. Oh, listen, you rambling. It's not your fault. What was she like? She was very intelligent, intimidatingly so. She wasn't afraid to show that off to people. Yes. Oh no, I'm just imagining. I can picture her almost. She left a strong impression on everyone she met, myself included. She was good at everything she tried. I think that upset some people, honestly. She was a prodigy, though, and through. More than just being the Chancellor. Well, nice thing about history is that it happens rather slowly. She had plenty of time for other pursuits, especially with how things are around here. I don't see why that would upset anyone. I wouldn't dare say for certain that she upset any of the others specifically. It's just a sense I've gotten in. Retrospective, perhaps. I nodded. Precious as I held them, my conversations with Catherine through the hagioscope had a certain friction that I couldn't imagine being amplified over years of talking to a person. I just don't understand why they're so sure that poor boy did it. She gave me a weak smile. You might have been able to rest up in the hospital if not for him. It's a wee bit nicer there than the dorms, I have to say. You don't think he killed her? I don't know if I'd go that far. It's less of a suspicion and more just, it's hard for me to reckon with purest random evil. Catherine was so good and wise and kind. For a lad to just murder her on a lark, I can't accept that. He'd have to have a reason, surely. Otherwise. Otherwise, the world is a much darker place than I'd believed. It's certainly a much dimmer place without Catherine. We sat in silence for a moment. I didn't dare rebuke Mora, nor I have the energy. But as well as empathy, frustration was bubbling inside of me. I could fix these misconceptions. Evil is everywhere. Demons are everywhere. The Lord saw that the weakness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. Genesis, basic, elementary, the very foundation of our faith. A godless man could kill someone as wonderful as Catherine without a second thought. It became clear to me there and then the lackadaisical and selfish attitudes surrounding crime. This disbelief in evil, something was very wrong here. Even Catherine's questions to me had bordered on blasphemous. These women were lost. My eyes snapped open. For a brief moment, I felt like I was spinning. It was like I'd only just regained control of my head. My throat tightened, and I made the tiniest little retch, although thankfully nothing came out. Oh dear, are you sleepy? How rude of me to spring all this on you now after badgering you about needing to relax. This is a dorm, not a place of confession. No, rude of me to drift off like that. Jesus, I'm sorry. You have my deepest sympathies. Mora stood up, my clothes still bundled in her arms. I'm going to make sure these get washed for you, so you can get some sleep. And I'll send someone to collect you to show you where the baths are. There's some fresh night clothes under the bed. She made a few strides to the door, then turned around one more time. And I'll ask Darcy for some mint. Good for an upset stomach. And for breath. She gave me an impish little grin. Well, you said it, not me. I must have looked mortified because she immediately became apologetic again. Oh, don't take it that the wrong way. It's not your fault. You've been sick. All right. Thank you again for everything. She closed the door gently, smiling warmly. I was left alone with my thoughts again. I must admit that I had been feeling pleasantly pampered for a moment before the mint comment. Oh, and a bath? I was really so disgusting? Of course I was. I was a complete mess. Unclean, irritating, always saying the wrong things, disrupting crime, expelling foul bile everywhere I went. What a mess. Finally, I got some real rest. I was simply too tired to rehash the embarrassment I had incurred over the course of the morning for a fifth or sixth time, and sleep finally took me. Hello? I'm awake. Just a minute. I stepped out of the bed and hastily made it back up as quickly as I could. Dropping to my knees, I looked underneath the wooden frame for nightclothes Moria had mentioned. They weren't hard to find. It was spotless under the bed, save for a neatly folded gown. I retrieved it and slipped it over my head. It was a little big for me, but it did the trick. Are you decent? I'm coming. Sorry. Just had to find a nightgown. I opened the door to greet her. She had the pleasant expression on her face and looked slightly more together than when I saw her in the chapel. She had droopy eyelids and a serene aura about her, except for the fact that she was dripping wet. Maury asked me to bring you some mint, so I brought you some. Are you feeling better? Yes, actually, quite a bit better. Darcy had put a few leaves of mint into her mouth and was chewing somewhat rapidly. Don't worry, Bray, I brought plenty. I love this stuff. Grow it myself. Do you really? Yes. She fluttered her eyelashes and held out her hand, proudly showing off a large patch full of leaves. I grow lots of things. Mint is definitely one of my favorites, though. She's, definitely, doing pot, even though, they didn't have access to that. Did you know it's really called mint? The No, I didn't know that. She offered me the bag to me and I reached out to grab a few leaves. I placed them in my mouth tentatively, but I was pleasantly surprised almost immediately. Oh, this is nice. That's right. You really grow this yourself. It's wonderful. Thank you for saying so, my friend. I just wish we hadn't gone and gotten yourself soaked in the process of getting it for me. You didn't have to do that on my behalf. Hmm? Oh no, this is because of the mint. Is it not? No. Oh. Anyway, bath time. She spun around on her heel, began shuffling away towards the hall. Wait, is there no lock on this door? No. We all trust each other here. Just make sure to knock. You don't want to walk in on Moria. Plating? Epilating? I don't know what that word is. I see. That was embarrassing. First time anyway. Third time it started being a bit funny, I suppose. I supposed I didn't have any possessions that needed to be kept away from prying eyes or fingers. I was just used to locks. Darcy moved quicker than I would have expected. You could scarcely see her legs moving underneath her habit. She seemed to glide wherever she went, bobbing up and down ever so slightly. I followed, still feeling a touch indisposed. I didn't even know my way around the Abbey. To be walking around it in a breezy nightgown felt wrong, perhaps even disrespectful. I tried to make some conversation to distract myself. This is a very nice abbey. It's big and cold and probably haunted. What? Well, actually, it's not true. It gets a little hot in summer when the sun hits the cloister, and you stand in the middle of the cloister. What did you mean haunted? Probably haunted. There's no such thing as ghosts. What makes you feel like the convent is probably haunted? But there's a lot of weird noises at night or when I'm alone walking around, and things move around on their own sometimes. And also I think most buildings just get a higher chance of being haunted the older they are. These buildings are very old. Well, I wouldn't worry about that. There really is no such thing as ghosts. I said this more to comfort myself than her, truth be told. All I could think of was the strange figure I'd seen from my window the night before. We took the stairs Catherine had led me down earlier, then walked past the door to the cloister to a web of halls I hadn't seen yet. That would be a shame. It would be nice to meet Catherine's ghost. Her placid expression didn't change, but I could sense a hint of sadness in her voice. Not wanting to press further, I quickly changed the subject. So, where are the baths? Not far from the kitchens. So we can make the water hot. Ah, how pleasant. It's nice. It's worth making the trips from the well, in my opinion. From the well? Does the kitchen not have a faucet? Oh, it does, but we weren't using it at the moment. Really? Why not? Well, it isn't really working. Ah. As we stepped out into the rain, I suddenly realized why she was soaked through. Oh, I really hoped you didn't trudge back and forth in the rain just for my bath water. I did. But it's okay, I like the rain. I was currently struggling to not slip on wet stone path in my wooden sandals and could for the life of me understand what Darcy was talking about. Watch your step. At least promise me you'll go and warm yourself up after this. Oh, I will. I've got to go help in the kitchen anyway, so it gets hot in there. She led me into a room with a large window with a wooden tub in the middle. It was certainly not originally a bathing room. The whole thing looked rather makeshift. There was a habit and a frock folded in a neat little pile not far away. And here we are. Enjoy, my liege. I didn't know what to make of that. I turned around to see if she looked annoyed or upset, but she had the same pleasant expression as ever on her face. If there's anything else I can get you, just shout. I'll probably hear from the kitchen. Well, I know I give everyone a southern accent. I got nothing else in my brain right now. Well, thank you. Bye. Darcy fluttered to her eyelashes and broadened her grin before spinning around to scoot back outside, into the rain, closing the door behind her gently. Feeling miserable once more, I shrugged off the nightgown and removed my veil and strode over to the tub. The water is quite warm, and some pleasant-smelling leaves were floating on the surface. Oh, jeez. I took a long look at myself and reflected in the water. Horrible. I was pale and small, but any movement of my torso revealed ugly creases of flesh that made me wince. My nose was bent. I had spindly fingers. My eyes were dull and had bags underneath them. My hair had been growing almost unhinged since taking my vows, save for an uneven line where I had made sure to cut my bangs, to keep them from creeping out under the veil and making my forehead itchy. All in all, I was sad, a sad little creature. Bathsheba? I was not. With a weary sigh, I stepped into the tub. The warmth was quite unlike anything I'd ever felt. As I lowered myself into water completely, I could feel my muscles relaxing, a tingling sensation all over, as if the stress of the day being washed away along with the dirt. Unfortunately, this relaxing effect didn't extend to my head. Ever since the superior had knocked on my door, I'd felt as if all my thoughts had been squeezed through a narrow tube one at a time, and I'd forgotten each word that made it out of my mouth, all by the time I was said. I was completely off balance. I even tried sinking my entire head beneath the water to see if it had the same cleansing effect on my mind. No such luck. Raising my head above the water line again, I tried to organize my thoughts as slowly as they came. I'd made a complete fool of myself in front of Catherine and Margaret. Well, in front of everyone, actually. I'd made Mora and Darcy waste their time attending to me like servants. No wonder Darcy had made that crack about my liege. They were probably all fed up with me already. But one of them was a killer. Well, we're making assumptions about that, aren't we? What did I care about any of that? This place was in complete shambles. Sisters taking the Lord's name in vain. Fragrant disrespect of the abbess. Skipping matins, no, in fact, disregard for the liturgy of the hours in full. A total lack of familiarity with basic concepts from Scripture, or the proper procedure for the Benedict monastic communities. And murder, that was on top of the list. To hell with all of them. Jeez, girl, you get mad. I ducked my head under the water again and exulted as hard as I could, in a feeble attempt to expel the rage building inside me. Well, the superior didn't say she assumed anybody was the murderer. So you're really making an assumption here. Like, we really don't have enough details about Catherine's death. Like, you're really making assumptions here. Anyways. It worked somewhat. A feeling of deep embarrassment replaced my anger. I leaned back and stared into the ceiling, ashamed. I tried to push every thought away, both guilt and anger, to try and enjoy the rest of my bath. It really was nice. I wouldn't mind if someone brought the tub in here for me. I might never get out. Say, while I have you here, would you like to hear a different story? It's shorter than my own, don't worry. It won't be too much of a detour. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's the one I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's a Bible story, of course. You, of course, know of Elijah and Elisha? Elijah ascended to heaven, Elisha inherited his father's spirit, the sphere of God, which he was able to perform miracles and so on and so forth. He could part waters like Moses and heal blighted lands and rivers. But there's a passage describing a journey to Bethel that amuses me. You know what I'm speaking of, yes? Actually, I don't. I'm not that familiar with that story. For Elisha went up from hence to Bethel, and when he went up by the way, little children ran out of the city and scourged him and said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I know this story. Go up, thou bald one, go up, thou bald one." And when he had beheld, he saw them and cursed them in the name of the Lord. And 2 bears went out of the forest and rent 240 children of them, Soothly, Elisha went from hence to the hill of Carmel, and from hence he turned again to Shamira. 42 children torn apart by angry bears at the behest of Elisha. That's rather extreme, isn't it? It's funny. When I was locked in that cell the first time around, I never thought much of this part of the story. But it is really awful to think about, isn't it? Could you imagine being ripped to shreds by wild beasts just for calling a man bald? Only it mustn't be horrible, because God heard Elisha's curse and punished the rude little boys and girls justly. I've read that a lot of people question if they really were children. Perhaps in the original Hebrew the world was a little broader. In Latin, it certainly says children, and we were taught that the text is inerrant. Which brings me to the part of the story that interests me so. The text is inerrant, but the Bible as we know it is a translation, so surely there is room for some error. In fact, that version of the story I recited for you, that wasn't just paraphrasing from the Vulgate for you. That was a passage translated by a man named John Wycliffe. Of course I know you know who Wycliffe is. No, I don't. I'm American. Who does not? Please continue to humor me. I'm attempting to record everything I find relevant to the story. Imagine perish the thought that you were some heathen listening to my tale. Yeah, I'm pretty much a heathen, even though I am a Christian, but I'm a heathen by this context. You'd appreciate the explanation, would you not? That is how I was trained to write chronicles. Do try and put up with me if I sound like a superior. Anyway, as written in Latin, the story is as follows. Assente amane ai bestu cambus es entrevena bar parve esque du se sente laminate e descende assente clave essende clave. Consequence represent vid eros in motivexi nomine domine exquisite son domi ursis altu e Avalantes e quens contra quanta ludunas perdos. Fuck that. Many years ago, Wycliffe translated the Bible into English. The Archbishop at the time accused him of inserting nefarious messages into his translations. Well, if you're in a Catholic church at that time, you wouldn't be using the English Bible, as far as I'm aware. It would still be using, like, the Catholic approved translations. He thought Wycliffe was trying to rile the common people to rebel against the church. So sure they were of Wycliffe's heresy, they held a synod to argue for his expulsion from Oxford. They succeeded, too. His Majesty Richard II banished him from the college, and became actual written law that no man shall write against the church. Yeah, this feels relevant today, in some cases, where you're not even, like, speaking against the people in power, you're literally just showing what's recorded that they've said on record, and they're like, how dare you speak against us? And it's like, it's literally what you said. Anyway. We both know the rest, of course, but you won't bite my head off for walking through it, will you? The Wycliffes were denounced. Their heresy was thoroughly put to rest. This was nearly a century ago, so God forgive me for saying this. Wycliffe had some interesting things to say about translation that off-rattle around in my head. But I've gotten very sidetracked here, haven't I? Oh dear. The point is, I find it interesting that Wycliffe's translation kept the children part from the Vulgate Bible. He too must have felt the original Latin text was inerrant, and yet he was punished for his translation work. Interesting. God forbid, but if the church as we know it crumbles many years from now, someone attempts to teach using the Bible as a basis, will they keep that part, like we kept in the Vulgate? What does this story actually mean? It certainly seems a bit cruel. Maybe it means nothing. If it means nothing, it is necessary? If it is necessary, what does it mean? You must forgive me. I do sound a bit of a lord at the moment, don't I? It is rather an impossible problem. The 42 children have been mauled by bears at least 3 times now. Probably many more, as I doubt Wycliffe is the only man who tried to write a Bible in his own language. And since I'm afraid I'm useless at Hebrew, I'll never know if they were meant to be if they were meant to be at all. I suppose this is splitting hairs. If they were grown men and women being attacked by a ferocious mother bear commanded by God's messenger is still a rather unpleasant way to go. Still, clawed to death for a playground taunt. What a strange world. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Quick save complete. I don't know if this actually saves or not. What does auto mean? Oh, I don't know what that means. Oh, no. Okay. Alright, that's it for today.